Okay, so I know I don't have to tell you who Dolly Parton is, but how much do you know about her husband? What does he do for a living? How did he land a girl like Dolly? Heck, what does he even look like? Don't feel bad, nobody seems to know much about him. In fact, so little is known about Dolly's husband that some believe he doesn't exist. On paper, Dolly is married to a man named Carl Thomas Dean. He's not famous for anything, besides being Dolly's husband, of course. And get this, the two are rarely seen together. They've never had children together, and it seems that Dolly has done everything in power to keep her hubby hidden. So in today's video, we're going to get to the bottom of Dolly Parton's mysterious marriage. As she climbed the ranks from Nashville nobody to the leading lady of country, what was her husband doing all the while? Is Carl Thomas Dean even real? And if he is, there's an even bigger question. What on earth is he hiding? Let's go find out. Before we begin, make sure to give this video a thumbs up to show us some support. And subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Now you ready? Well, let's go find out. What happened? Dolly Parton. To say that Dolly keeps busy would be an understatement. The Smoky Mountain songbird continues to perform and record music. She runs several charities, and she maintains a massive business empire. She even has her own amusement park. And while I'm sure she isn't spending her summers making funnel cakes alongside pimple-faced teens, that also requires some attention. But where on earth is her husband? It appears that the husband of one of the most public women in history is one of the most private men in history. Why do we know so little about Carl? Dolly has offered up some information, but it's always vague. He doesn't really do public appearances. When asked about their relationship, she says they have different interests. When asked how they've stayed together so long, she says, "I stay going." In fact, the only time she shared more than the bare minimum was during a podcast in 2021. When she let slip, she's sick of him, and she's sure he's sick of her. But is that really true? Rare sightings. The official narrative about how Dolly and Carl met is oddly simple. They met at a laundromat, the story goes, and they were married 2 years later. In fact, even the wedding was suspiciously secretive. The two were married in a 1966 tiny ceremony. The only guests were Dolly's mother, the preacher, and his wife. Dolly, of course, has probably had more media attention than some presidents. But despite that, it was over a decade until the media caught even a brief glimpse of Carl. So what did the reporter find out about this mystery man? A Cosmopolitan reporter was doing a profile on Dolly, and Carl didn't get out of the way quickly enough. From her brief interaction with him, she was able to glean a few details. Carl was tall and good-looking. He enjoyed TV and Steve Martin. Not exactly an in-depth profile. Heck, that could describe me, especially the tall and good-looking part. But even that small brush with fame was too much for Carl, because after that, it would be decades before anybody saw him. The true story. Okay, so what the heck's the deal? Is Carl a real person? Is he an actor? How long has Dolly known him?
We're very secure in who we are, and we love each other a lot.
Okay, so we're going back to the beginning. Because despite all the smoke screens and illusions, it seems that Dolly's telling the truth about her husband. And the story of how they met is pretty different from how most celebrities meet their matches. Yes, the story is oddly simple like I said, but it is oh so fascinating. It was Dolly's very first day in Nashville. She was outside the wishy-washy laundromat when a white truck pulled in. The man got out, followed her inside, and asked her for a date. That man's name was Carl Thomas Dean. She, of course, said no. She said she was staying with her very strict aunt. but he could come hang out with her on the porch of her aunt's house. See, Dolly wasn't famous then, so when he saw a very pretty girl washing some blouses, he never could have imagined that she would one day become one of the world's most famous people. The very first day that her aunt was away, he drove her to his parents' house and introduced her to them. He knew that day he would marry Dolly. For a while, they went on simple, low-key dates to places like McDonald's. But then Dolly's career began to take off, and 2 years later, they were married. It's really a lovely story, but there's still one big question. Why does Carl still choose to hide away from the world? Why so hidden? Okay, so Dolly has given us an explanation, and it's shockingly simple, if you decide to take her word on it. Dolly has claimed her husband is a quiet, reserved person, and if he accompanied her into the spotlight, he would never get a moment's peace. In fact, there was one time when Carl accompanied her to a red carpet event. Carl did his part. He dressed up real nice. He smiled. He waved to the cameras. Driving home afterwards, he told her he loved her, but please, would she never, ever ask him to do that again? The red carpet was no place for Carl Thomas Dean. So why no kids? They've never said, but Dolly was one of 12 kids, and she and Carl helped raise several of her nieces and nephews. So they were de facto parents for a bit. And let's face it, Dolly Parton is way too busy for kids, or at least 12 of them. So what about Dolly's comments that the two are actually sick of each other? Well, Dolly shared that she and her hubby share a twisted sense of humor. And I think she was exaggerating. To be funny, of course. Dolly has said she and Carl work hard to keep things fresh and make each other happy. Carl is an unlikely wordsmith and has written poetry for Dolly. And for her part, she gave him the birthday present of recreating her famous Playboy photo shoot. Yeah, that's just what any man wants. So there you have it, the mystery behind Dolly Parton's pretty secretive marriage. It started hush-hush, and it is still pretty hush-hush. But it's also kind of touching. When you're as famous as Dolly Parton is, you probably get sick of cameras too. So I know she appreciates having a down-to-earth guy to go home to at the end of the day. Although, Dolly, if you're reading this, I'll write you as many poems as you want. Just don't tell Carl. When Dolly Parton's husband saw her outside that laundromat, he never could have guessed that someday she would be one of the richest, most beloved, and most talented people on the face of the earth. Their love story is private and pretty bizarre, but it's also very, very heartwarming. Dolly could have her choice of just about any guy on the planet, but she chose to stick by a shy, hard-working fella from Tennessee, the guy who runs a cement empire. It's a message that all of us should embrace, even if it's just you're working a 9-to-5. You also have something amazing to offer. Don't ever forget that. Although no, you're not gonna get to marry Dolly Parton, and I'm sorry about that. But what you can do is get in the comments and tell us your favorite Dolly Parton song. Did you know much about Carl Thomas Dean before this video? What is Dolly Parton's best acting performance? Get in the comments and tell us your thoughts. We read them all. Before you go, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps. Subscribe to our channel and come back often so we can keep telling you
What happened?